couple of things to that. One is under 12A, open forum. 12B, yes? 12? Oh, I'm sorry, 13. 13. Under unfinished business. 13B, search for executive director. 13C, search for attorney. And 13D, Gray Robinson proposal. Does anyone have anything else to include in this? Dr. Walker? No. Anyone else? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
So moved.
It's been moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please vote. And it is adopted unanimously. The next item is a public hearing, of which there's none, and we come to open forum. And Dr. Gloria Horning has asked to speak to us in open forum. I do want to mention that before the meeting, Mr. Sorrell contacted me and said Dr. Horning wanted to do a slide presentation, and I said, sure, no problem. And I obviously spoke too soon because our IT people said we like to have any kind of materials that go onto our computer screened beforehand. And so in the future, we will do that. I did not see a reason this time to stop that. So just so you will know, and to let anyone else know, that if there are presentations in open forum, we need to at least have IT take a look at them. Okay, and you are recognized.
Gloria Horning, 310 South the Villars. On that note, I'll be happy to present it to the IT, but I will not present it beforehand of public forum. It's not required at the city, county, or the school board. This computer is not hooked up to the server. The only thing on this disk was these two pictures. If we could get them up, that would be great. Okay, when I was here last week, I misspoke about where the wellheads are, or the manhole covers are in Wedgwood. I said they were on Wingfoot. Here you can see where they are located on Warner and on Hamilton Road. So those are the wellheads that we would like tested. Also to follow up, hopefully, since we now have the addresses in of the homes that requested to be tested. So I didn't have this last time. I'd just gotten out of the hospital, so I wanted to bring it now. So there you have it. Second, I wanted to give just a little science lessons on landfills and the impact on our water table. And here's how it works. Since not one landfill in Escambia County is lined, not one, it goes directly into our groundwater flow. Therefore, with impacting all of our waters, whether they're surface waters, drinking water, a puddle on the street, all of those toxins, as the report says, the toxins from the Rolling Hills landfill are uncleanable, the metals are uncleanable, and are in our groundwater and our water table and in our bayous. Marcus Point, Crescent Lake goes right out to Perdido Key. Perdido Key is highly polluted, as stated on the Department of Health state website that cites all of the pollutants and what their levels are. Bayou Tahar right now is unswimmable because of the feces in it. I doubt that's dogs, cats, and cattle, but it's there's warning signs out at Bayview Park not to swim, fish, or have any contact with the water. So, third, I really like what Mr. Sorrell had to say at the community or the citizens meeting of testing the wellheads going into the schools. I think that's fantastic because then we can see if there is a difference. That's great. I hope it's going to start immediately. I pay attention to what's going on to the ECUA website because public service is not y'all's middle name. How do people get their boil water notices? Because there's been several, and I've called friends that live in these communities, and they say they didn't know. Thanks for telling me. So there's that, like answers on that. And then back to the Environmental Working Group. The Environmental Working Group has an A+ rating nationally and are the scientists behind many lawsuits protecting humans and our environment. Most recently, won 3 cases in California against Roundup, knowing that it's a carcinogenic and is very toxic to humans and wildlife. So y'all can keep saying over and over and over again because you think it's going to be right that there's some shotgun group, but it's not. It's just not, and get some science behind it. People would really like to attend these meetings, but they can't because they work. I know y'all brought it up before. Let's try to change these meetings or bring the meetings downtown. I know Quint Studer would be quite open to having him at his new facility. The city, if they're not having anything in the evenings, they're open to your meetings, as well as the county. People would like to see y'all and talk to y'all. And then last but not least, if you really, really believe our water is so good, test at a higher standard than the minimum EPA standards and state standards that you test now, and release all of the reports, not a summary. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have no more speaker requests. We will go next to presentations. There are none. And item 7 is approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of February 26, 2019. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please vote. And it passes 4-0. We come next to the report of the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting of March 19th, 2019. Ms. Campbell.
Thank you. The Citizen Advisory Committee met on March 19th at 3 p.m. All members were present with the exception of Ms. Ben, Ms. Benson, Ms. Booker. All the B's were out. Are you feeling better?
Somewhat.
There's a lot of that going around.
Yeah.
So, item F was a contract extension for preventative maintenance on engineering cooling services. Recommendation was made by Mr. Kimball, seconded by Mr. Ponson, that the board approve first of 2 optional 1-year extensions of the annual service contract with Engineered Cooling Services, Pensacola, Florida, for full service HVAC preventative maintenance with funding available from the appropriate budget line item. The committee voted 8-0 in favor. Item G was a small-scale contract utility relocation on U.S. Highway 98, Tallow Tree Drive. The recommendation made by Mr. Ponson, seconded by Mr. Kimball, that the board authorize the executive director to use the ECUA's existing small-scale contract to perform the utility relocations for the Florida Department of Transportation roadway project and establish a budget in the amount of $60,000. The committee voted 8-0 in favor. Item H was an award of bid for RW 817 tank maintenance of 2018. The recommendation, Mr. Kimball, seconded by Ms. Ritz, that the board award the contract for the base bid to the lowest and only bidder, Pittsburgh Tank and Tower Maintenance Company, for the base bid price of $112,000 with funding from CIP project RW 817. Committee voted 8-0 in favor. Item I was an agreement, subordination of utility interest with the Florida Department of Transportation utility relocation on US Highway 29 at CR 184. Recommendation was made by Mr. Perkins and seconded by Mr. Kimball that the board authorize the executive director to enter into the proposed agreement with the Florida Department of Transportation to subordinate utility interest in exchange for the reimbursement of the cost to relocate water system facilities that currently occupy that subject easement. The committee voted 8-0 in favor. Item J was staff responses to February open forum comments. Before discussing item J, Chairman Campbell advised the first paragraph on page 17 for correction, but it was corrected to read Dr. Walker made the request. Dr. Walker request was result of statements made during the open forum at the February Citizen Advisory Committee meeting associated with the Rolling Hill landfill closure. Item K was a sanitation fleet capital financing forecast presentation by Ms. Patty Shelton. The finance director made a presentation to the committee on a forecast of debt services costs for the sanitation fleet, presuming the use of the lease purchase program. The fleet vehicle funding option would allow ECUA to purchase sanitation trucks and make lease payments during the useful life of these assets. The new trucks would be a part of a 7-year program with a goal of replacing roughly 8 to 10 vehicles per year. I would like to move items F through I for approval.
Is there a second?
Second?
Mr. Perkins? Any discussion? If not, please vote. And it passes 4-0.
Thank you. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Campbell. Item 9 is the award of bid of Coventry Estates Lift Station Replacement and Evergreen Lift Station Abandonment. Mr. Sorrell, will you address this?
Yes, ma'am. This is one of the more complicated lift station projects that we've had in quite some time. There are 2 lift stations involved, which is the Coventry Estates Lift Station number 56 and the Evergreen Lift Station number 13. What this proposal is, and it's competitively bid, is to basically replace both of those and have one lift station there at Coventry Estates, have it elevated to the point where it'll be flood-proof, and also to replace a large amount of pipe. They're going to consolidate the 2 stations, install 1,000 feet of force main and 700 feet of gravity, in addition to all the other things. So it's a large project. The low bidder is Pensacola Concrete Construction. They haven't done lift station work for us before, but they've done an awful lot of work for us, and they've always been exceptional in their work, and we anticipate that same thing will occur this time. So we're recommending award to Pensacola Concrete Construction. I think there are 2 minor concerns with the bid, and I think they're waivable according to our attorney, Mr. Odom, and if anybody has any questions, they're considered minor informalities. But basically, we're recommending award to Pensacola Concrete Construction as the low bidder.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move
Mr. Perkins?
Second.
Dr. Walker? Any discussion of this item? Looks like the economy's doing better. There was a big gap between the low bid and the second.
Might be because it's the first time they did that.
Yeah. But we'll take that as the low bid, yeah. If there's no further discussion, please vote. Yeah, I'm for that. And it passes 4-0. The
Madam
next-
Chairman?
Yes.
May I make a point?
Sure, of course.
As a PS, I'd just like to point out that this one lift station replacement project cost almost $2 million. That's just, I think I'm correct in that. And that's just an example of the heavy expense challenges that face us and that we have to deal with all the time. Just want to point that out.
Sorry, I don't know how to make that stop. Thank you, Dr. Walker.
That wasn't me making that motion.
Okay. All right. Next, we come to the budget report. Ms. Sheldon, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon. The budget report is as of February 28th, so we're 42% through the year. There's not really a lot of new or anything that we weren't aware of items that are over budget. It continues to be repair and maintenance of vehicles, temporary services, contractual services. There were some large repairs of vehicles early in the year. Those things will have to smooth out over time as we progress through the budget year. Some temporary services and contractual services with regards to patchwork being done through regional services have been more expensive than anticipated with the new city rules and those kinds of things. So we may be looking to cover those through operating contingency, but we'll see how the year progresses.
Okay.
So,
Nothing, no red flags.
no, ma'am, not at this time.
Any questions? Dr. Walker?
Yes. Are the current budget figures for the total year or for 42% of the year?
That's for the current year. That would be a yearly figure.
For the entire year?
Yes, sir. So that's what I'm comparing, how much we've spent to date compared to the annual budget.
So, for example, in the first item, 1,200 regional services, underwater and wastewater, the budget for the entire year is $388,000, and we have already exceeded that. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. By some of those items that I've got listed there, the temporary services, contractual services, repair and maintenance. But like I said, some of those are big items that happened at the beginning of the year, like an unusually large repair for a truck or something, that will only happen, you know, the one time, hopefully, something of that size. So that's why we'll see if it smooths out as we progress through the year.
Do we have any equally sized under expenditures?
Yes. Yes, there are a lot of categories that are under budget as of this point.
All right.
So that's, we'll use any under budgets we have to cover over budgets, which we do at the end of the year when we true things up. And then, you know, we'll also true up revenue at the end of the year to compare what we budgeted for revenue, what we actually got for revenue.
Thank you.
Sure.
Sure. Ms. Campbell?
So are we seeing an increase in revenue due to the,
At this point, revenue is pretty much on target. Our big revenue months are the summer, of course, and then, well, starting in May or so when people start watering, and then also it gets drier, people use more water, they fill their pools, whatever. So the summer months generally bring in a little bit more revenue than the other months. So if you're looking at just 1/12 of revenue throughout the year, that's not the way it comes in.
yeah?
One other question. Are the departments now looking, I'm sure they are, looking ahead to the 2020 year, budget year, and looking at what their goals are and that sort of thing? And when will we begin to see those
Yes, ma'am,
numbers?
they are. They are looking at that now. We plan to bring several departments in April with their operating budgets and their goals for you to start looking at. And then in May, we'll bring the remaining departments. We'll pull that all together into one document for the June meeting for the CAC and present that as we normally do, the whole budget all together.
Right.
But April and May will be times for individual departments to
Great.
present their budget.
And someone will be here from each department to
Yes, ma'am.
answer the questions. Good. I think that will be an improvement. I thank you for implementing that. Any other questions? If not, thank you very much,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Sheldon. The next item is the Executive Director's Report. Mr. Sorrell.
Yes, ma'am, I have several items. First off, the Government Street pipework downtown that we've talked about over and over and over is scheduled to take place or start next week. It's going to take between 6 and 8 weeks to finish that. And just to give you a visual, here's some photographs of the inside of that pipe you might want to look at. Pass that down, please. But they should start work. It's going to be a challenge. You know, the pipe's 15 to 17 feet deep, and at about 2 to 3 feet, we run into water. So there's going to be a lot of dewatering taking place. We've worked with the city of Pensacola, and they've required us to do certain things, which will be done. But basically, that project's ready to start. Second item,
And I've seen it, so.
the amount of contamination we're receiving in
Thank
the
you.
materials recycling in Santa Rosa County has really, it has ballooned to the point where it's a real problem. It's between 30 and 40% contamination rate, which is completely unacceptable, so we're addressing that now. Essentially what we're doing is we're separating garbage, and it's just not what a recycling facility is supposed to do. We're also working with the county on trying to build a transfer station. I've asked each of the board members to communicate with their co-person from the county, from the Board of County Commissioners, and to really discuss that. It should be a win-win situation. Essentially, it doesn't affect disposal at all. It's simply for collection and transportation of the materials to the Perdido landfill. Essentially, it's taking 3 little trucks and putting it in one big truck and taking it to landfill. It reduces our costs significantly for the transportation costs, but it also reduces our maintenance costs significantly. As you know, we had a truck turnover at the landfill the other day, one of the collection vehicles, which really hurts. We lose drive shafts, rear ends, transmissions, and various other things with the collection vehicles having to go out on the face of the landfill. So what we want to do is use a transfer station, essentially take the 3 little trucks and put it into a 18-wheeler and send it to the landfill. It'll reduce the problem we're having with waiting in line at the scales and sometimes waiting in line on Beulah. So overall, it's a win-win. I think the county's going to win because they're going to continue to get all of the collection materials. We're going to win because it's going to save us costs, save us time, and various other things. We've implemented a system with our telephone system down in customer service where we're directly sending people who want to pay their bill to Easy Pay. That plus the hiring of 7 new people down there, the 2 new ones the board authorized, and the 5 additional people who were replacements. The abandoned calls went from about 14% down to less than 2%. So it's way down. I think it was 1.5%. So we're to the point now where we're answering virtually everything, and out of that less than 2% is probably a lot of robocalls that we don't want, and a bunch of other calls about mortgages we don't have and debts that we don't have and various other things. So we get an awful lot of those. So bottom line is the call system is working very effectively now. We have very few abandoned calls, and the answers or the responses that we get on the customer service is still extremely high. So they're doing a great job in very difficult condition. We received a notice that it looks like we're going to be eligible for the National Resources Damage Assessment Grant. $4.68 million we're going to get, and that's to finish installing the reuse system out on Pensacola Beach. As you know, we built a big tank out there. It's going to be scheduled to be painted. The board authorized that, so that should start, I think I was told, next week. So there'll be painting on that, so you'll probably get a lot of calls about everybody wanting to put different logos on there that we can't do. But basically, it looks like we're going to get that amount of money, so we're going to extend the reuse system now. So a lot of the people who've asked to have the plants moved off of the beach and so on, that water will now be reused for irrigation, and the solids are trucked off the beach, so it's not a problem. So I think we've got a win-win situation. We had a situation over the weekend. I got a call late, I think it was Saturday night. We lost communications at our lift station out in Beulah. So we sent a man out there to repair it, and they found a large hole in the fence, about 3 by 3. And when our man, our instrument electrical person got out and going to make the repairs, there were thieves stealing the antenna, and they shot at our man 15 times. So it got to be a real serious situation. We contacted the law enforcement. They came out, and they stayed until we made the necessary repairs, and we filed a police report and so on. But I just couldn't believe somebody would steal an antenna and then shoot at our people who went out to repair it. Moreover, I don't think they were the smartest criminals going, because the antenna is, if you know anything about electronics and radio transmission, basically that antenna can only be used for a certain frequency. And if they got it to put on their car or their television or something like that, it won't work. It's only usable for a certain frequency, which is UHF, and I'm not going to broadcast exactly what frequency that is, because whoever got that antenna, it won't work unless they know exactly what they're doing, which I don't think they did. So we'll see. But they, thieves shooting at employees is just not something we're normally accustomed to, and it just shows you what's happening. Last thing I have before I ask if you have any questions is Today, or this meeting will be the last meeting for Cindy Sutherland, our Director of Human Resources and Administrative Services. She's going to retire. She and her husband are going to play golf, and they go back and forth between here and South Florida, and we're going to miss her tremendously. Kim has been appointed as her successor, and I'm sure Kim's going to do a great job too. She certainly had a good mentor. I don't know if Cindy wants to say anything or not. She wants to go out quietly. She doesn't want a big party or anything because she gets real emotional, but she has been an outstanding person and somebody I've relied upon over and over and over. She never fails. Everybody loves her, so we're going to miss her terribly. So.
Do you have a speech, Cindy? Good.
We'll keep it short, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity Steve and Randy Rudd gave me, 7 years ago, to serve and represent our employees. I've been a strong advocate of all stakeholders for ECUA, and I couldn't have done it without my great team, Kim, and I've got 10 professional, really dedicated employees who do their best every day to come in and make a difference. And I think I'm going to be leaving this place in a better condition in which I found it. And I think Ms. Scruggs is going to do the same with our team of great professionals. So Steve, I can't thank you enough for your leadership and trust in me. And I hope I've served the utility well.
So, I used to be a school teacher, and you always had that one kid who made eye contact and kept you going, who fueled you, who made you think that what you said mattered, even if in your heart you knew it didn't. I am going to miss your face because you are always cheering this board on, and you do a lot of other things, but that's the one thing that's going to be missing in this. So, Kim, up your game. And thank you, and we all wish you well. Ms. Campbell.
Somebody asked me, well, a lot of people have been asking questions about our administrator leaving, and I said, well, the one thing I can tell you about Steve Sorrell is that we have never experienced anything with succession. When somebody leaves, it's just like the next day, they just pick up and carry on. And so you're going to be missed. I know that Kim is going to do a fantastic job. I'm going to miss your little smiling face out there every month, and every time we pick up the phone or email you, you give us everything we need. It's sad that you're leaving. I had one more thing on contamination. I went to a presentation this morning. I just got invited out at Perdido Key for contamination in the recycle system, and I think that is one of the most wonderful presentations that Jim does, and I wish everybody would get different groups. I'm going to ask my Rotary group to do it as well. But can we put something in the newspaper about that as well? Because I don't think people realize that contamination is costing no one but them. So, I think if we get the word out to people that if you contaminate the recycle, it's like putting it in your own bed or something, it's coming out of your pocket if things have to go to the landfill. $55 a ton to bury is about half of what it costs to recycle. So if you're contaminating your recycle, you're just doing your own self in. You're just costing yourself money. So I think if we could really get that message out to the public, Jim does a fantastic job, but he's just one man. I had a lady email me the other day, and she said, how much does that little man in the truck that goes along behind the garbage people make? He makes too much. And I was like, no, actually, he doesn't make enough, and if I could clone him, I would, because it would get people to quit contaminating the recycle. But I'll get off my horse now.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions from your report, Mr. Sorrell. Do we have a match for the NERDA grant? It seems to me that I remembered that we did.
No, ma'am, I don't believe there's a
Good.
match for this particular grant.
That's amazing. That is going to be a huge boon for the beach and for us. The other question, I know that you have asked the board members to meet with our respective board members on the county commission regarding this transfer station, and I think we'll all do that. What objection can the county have? Is it location? I mean, it seems to make such operational sense.
It's hard for me to answer. I've heard various things, some of which were political, some of which were location. Certain commissioners don't want a transfer station in their district, but you know, already got where we're going to put this is at Godwin Lane, right, where we've already got a garbage operation, a sanitation complex. So I don't see a downside. I think what needs to happen is that the commissioners need to be informed, well informed by each of you, so they understand. And I think if they understand that it's a win-win, that we may have better support. Because I've been trying to get this done for 10 years or so, and I just haven't been able to get it done. It's all politics, and so I need your help. And if you'll talk to them and try to convince them, if you need any information in advance, we'll be glad to talk to you and explain it to you. Randy knows more than I know, and he could certainly give it to you, but I can probably give you what you need. I also wrote to you and gave you the information you needed, I think. So it's a win-win. It's simply collection and transportation, 3 little trucks and 1 big truck to go to the landfill. That's all it is. And it's, you know, it doesn't take really a rocket scientist to figure out how much it's going to save us by not sending our individual collection vehicles all the way to the landfill, have to wait in line, go out on the face and dump, and then go back to work. If we can dump that in a semi-trailer and then send that truck back to work, the collection vehicle back on the route, it's going to greatly increase our performance because we're having trouble getting done with all the routes now. So basically for us, it's cost savings and it's performance enhancement, and for the county, there's really no change. It's simply a win-win.
Okay. Well, I just, in anticipation of the meeting, I want to be able to address any of the concerns they have, but I think probably they are getting calls when we have missed pickups. So if they know that they're going to get fewer calls because of this efficiency, that's a strong argument. Okay, Ms. Campbell, I see.
Well,
you
I actually spoke to my counterpart at the county, Mr. Burgosh, and he was all for the transfer station. He was not all for the location just because he thought that other locations were available, but when we spoke to Randy, we found out that one location was not available in Warrington because it was too close to water. So I relayed that information back to him and told him that I would be going to the center, and Randy just informed me I could come at 9 o'clock. I may ask him to join me there at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. It is his district, so I understand that you might feel like something else is going on. So I would like for him to know exactly what's going on, that it's not gonna be trash left there overnight. It is enclosed, which I wasn't aware of in the beginning. I thought it would be 3-walled, but I was told by Randy that it is gonna be enclosed, so there won't be garbage out for people to smell. And right now, trucks have to be left there overnight, and you can smell it. So this may actually be an improvement. Is that correct, Randy? Okay. So that may be something that.
Thank you for that input, Ms. Campbell.
Thank
you. Mr. Perkins? Oh, did you have something to interject in response, Mr. Sorrell?
No, ma'am. I'll finish up when each of you
Okay.
are done asking your questions.
Okay. Mr. Perkins?
Well, if I were on the county commission, I might think that, well, what if, they put all this stuff in one big truck and they might take it somewhere else instead of to the landfill? Well, you could tell them that we can't do that because of flow control. We're mandated
Right.
to take it to them, and an advantage could be that it may lessen traffic out there. If we've got one vehicle going in and getting in line rather than 3 at a time, it may lessen traffic. So hopefully they'll be willing to go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Okay, Mr. Sorrell?
Yes,
You may
ma'am.
continue.
Just a couple of quick things. First off, one thing Cindy did not tell you is I begged and begged and begged her to take that job for years before I finally talked her into it. And then she did just a absolutely perfect job for us. I knew she was a candidate before she would accept the job, but she didn't want it. And then all of a sudden, I was sweet enough to talk her into it. The second thing is, Ms. Campbell mentioned the newspaper for ads on contamination. I think we're doing a TV ad that's going to do some of that. So I think that's all underway. I believe that's correct. And the last thing is, you mentioned Jim in his presentation. He does a great job, but we've got him on road patrol right now. Essentially what that means in the areas where we're having problems in our routes, where we have a little bit too much contamination, Jim's been assigned to actually go out and walk those routes, look in the garbage cans and see if there's contamination in them. If so, he goes up and knocks on the door and explains to them what can and can't go in there. And if he finds people who are doing it perfectly, he even gives them some little reward. So he's been going door to door, and so far he hasn't been beat up or shot at, but he's been doing a great job for us. And according to the reports I've received from him, it's been very successful so far. And that's in my report, ma'am.
And will you ask him to also put a note on cans, if people have not moved their cans in? I get constant complaints from people in neighborhoods where the trash can's left out all week, and then they pull it in to fill them and then put it out. And of course, our drivers don't know that it's been out all that week, but that's a constant complaint. Anyway, Ms. Campbell.
Can you tell us where can you give us a list of where the most difficult spots are for contamination? I heard
Yes, I'll get with Randy and we'll get you a list.
Thank you.
Okay, we move now to the attorney's report. Mr. Odom, you're recognized.
Got a lot going on, but I rarely say it, but actually I have nothing to report this month, no major decisions or anything, so.
I can't remember you being at a loss for words. Okay, thank you. Okay, we come now to number 13, unfinished business, and I added several items. One was 13A, open forum. I'm sorry Mr. Tweedy's not here. I always miss him when he's not here. When we went to a two-time open forum during our meetings, the rationale was it gave people a chance to speak before the meeting and then leave if they have other business, or if they got in late, they could speak after the meeting. I don't think any of us anticipated having the same person speak two times during the same meeting. I would suggest that I would like to implement a policy where in the open forum, one person could speak only for that one 5-minute session. You know, it's more generous than what the county and the city allow, and I think it should be adequate. But I certainly don't want to do that unilaterally without the agreement of the members of the board. So I invite your input on that. Mr. Perkins?
Well, I mean, that, that was something I was concerned about when we adopted the policy. We went from, 3 minutes to 5 minutes, and then we went from one time to two times. And the reason I voted for it is just like you said, that, I don't want somebody not to be able to speak because they got caught in traffic coming to the meeting.
Right.
And I don't want somebody to have to sit through the whole meeting just to speak on their issue and hear 3 hours of ECUA stuff in order to say their 3-minute or 5-minute thing. So I would support you in that basic operational thing. Give everybody a chance, give them 5 minutes, and let them say whatever they want.
Okay. Any other input, Ms. Campbell?
I support that.
Okay. You good with it, Dr. Walker?
But for this meeting, I think she should,
No, it was
go ahead
advertised
and
this
let them
way.
have it, yeah.
I just brought that up for future meetings, so. Okay, item 13B, sorry, yes, sir.
Hold on, just to clarify, because I've heard some different things. Are you saying that we're going to continue to have 2 open forums?
Yes.
But a person can speak at either the first
Right.
or the last?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the reasons to have one at the beginning of the end are valid reasons. It's just, we've had meetings recently that have gone on fairly long where board members had added something to the agenda that didn't get to be heard because of the lateness of the hour. And so I think it's important that we not impede the work of the board. So anyway. Yes,
I
sir.
do think since it's a policy change, we should have a vote on it.
Okay, is there a motion?
I move the policy as described.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, please vote. And it passes 3-1. Thank you for that. Item 13B is the search for a new executive director. I understand that a RFP has been formulated to send out nationwide to executive search organizations to come back to us to choose the firm who will do the search for the executive director. You know, this is a very, very important thing for this board to do. We don't do it very often. When was it, 16 years ago? So, 17. So it's very important that we get it right. And, you know, Ms. Campbell talked about the seamless transition that we see with Ms. Sutherland and with virtually every department head. But this is one that's on our shoulders. We can't depend on Mr. Sorrell to pick the next person. That's our job. And so I would suggest that we all come up with our list of what our dream candidate looks like, what the priorities. We're a different organization than we were 17 years ago. You know, for example, I might say I want an executive director who not only leads recycling, but carries his little blue bag into the grocery store, and his wife or her husband carries his blue bag into the grocery store. That may be on my list, and other things, but I think we all ought to come up with that list to go into this search. And I think next meeting we will probably have a list of executive firms, and we should be able to collate our list and come up with what it is. You know, it's an opportunity to kind of rethink who we are and where we're going. And so it's very important that we give it a lot of thought. The other thing, and that I think we need to move not with haste, but we need to move fairly swiftly in this and consider all of the candidates and all of the qualifications, but not let this be protracted. I know that with any transition, there's a lot of unrest and anxiety among employees. Who is the new boss going to be? What is it going to be like? And we want to make sure that the employees are comfortable in all of this. See, Ms. Sutherland's nodding her head. So, but anyway, and the other issue with regard to the search for the ED is there are 4 of us. And one part of this county is not represented in this important decision. And that really concerns me. I am going to be in Tallahassee this week, advancing some of our items, but I hope to at least get word to the governor that it's important to fill that vacancy. We need District 3 to have a voice in the selection of our new executive director. Okay, I'm sorry to dominate this. Yes.
I'm very concerned about that as well. I mean, it's particularly since the minority community, and yeah, I don't know what's going on. I haven't seen the position advertised. I mean, I know some people have applied, but I know they're busy. I know there's a legislative session going on, but I really think we need to. I think prodding them is a good idea and saying, hey, this community deserves representation. Can we get this advertised and get somebody appointed? So
Yeah.
I applaud your efforts on that.
Thank you. And I invite all of you to send a note to the governor or whatever, because, we had a vote at our last meeting that was not a life-changing vote for ECUA, but it failed 2-2. Fortunately, it was one that was not critical, but there could be critical issues, and District 3 needs representation. Ms. Campbell.
I just want to weigh in and say I totally agree. I've already, sent some messages, but I will write the governor a letter asking him to please do so with haste. I miss Mr. McCorvey and his input. His district is the minority district, and he had a lot of things that he wanted taken care of in that district. So I do think that we have a spot in Escambia County that really needs representation. So before we make some of these decisions, like that decision of an executive director and attorney, those are the 2 most important things that this board does. So not to have that person in here for those is a sure enough void. So Thank you.
And not just in the selection, but in outlining the priorities and the vision for, it's very important. Well, I will trust all of you to communicate with the governor.
But on the constituent service front, I want to let everybody out there know, if you're in District 3 and you have issues you need help with, call Dale Perkins, and I will be glad to help you. I have no problem helping people from other districts. I get it all the time, so.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Good idea, and I think all of us share that commitment. Okay, the next item is the search for an attorney. That's 13C. At this point, we have engaged, whom have we engaged, Mr. Sorrell?
Well, I think I've received a proposal from the firm of Beggs and Lane as an interim attorney.
Right.
If you want to do that, or you can also discuss the matter with Mr. Odom to see what his intentions are. So it's really, the board needs to discuss that and decide what they want to do.
Okay. Mr. Perkins.
So we're looking at basically possibly having a firm go out to all the local attorneys and say, hey, we've got an opening. We'd like you to see about it. Is it possible that we could be voting next month on a permanent attorney? How long is that going to take? I mean, how hard is it to go to say all of these firms, hey, there's an opening, we'd like to interview you? I mean, I don't see it being a extremely prolonged process unless I'm missing something.
If the board authorizes me to pursue the contract with Landrum HR, I can sign that tomorrow, and they can initiate that process immediately. Within 30 days, they can probably accomplish most of what they want, but they'll want to go through each of those and review them. But I can probably get you a lot of information before the next board meeting. I don't know if I have all of it, we can try. So you should have it either the April or May meeting. I don't know that you really want to rush it enough and leave somebody out or not properly vet the applications. We want to make sure they don't have any kind of conflicts. We want to make sure they're licensed in the state of Florida. There's a lot of firms around that need to be contacted. So there's just a lot of work that needs to be done. I mean, we can shortcut it if you want, and I can make it as short as you want or as long as you want. If you're telling me you want everything in here by the next board meeting, we can probably do that. But I'll need to act tomorrow to make that happen.
Well, and the reason I'd like to do that, I mean, if we were to hire another company other than Mr. Odom and bring them in, I mean, in a month or two, they're not going to be able to read the case files on what he's got they have no institutional knowledge, and so they're not going to be able to represent us. So if it's short, like a month, I'd be in favor of maybe asking Mr. Odom if he'd continue to work with us for the month, and then at the next meeting, hire somebody permanently. But then I had a question on the permanent thing. Can we hire a firm and put in the contract that it's a 90-day probationary status, that we want to make sure you're comfortable with us and we're comfortable with you, and then after that it's an annual contract?
Mr. Sorrell?
Well, I'm not an attorney, but I believe the answer is we can place most anything we want to negotiate in the contract, and we can probably have what they call an out clause in that particular contract where we can terminate their services, but that's all to be negotiated with whatever firm the board selects. I don't know if you want to go through an interview process and so on, but if you want me to go ahead with Landrum HR, I'll have them do most of that work for us, and then we'll tell them that we're going to need some kind of a provision to where we can terminate their services if you're not happy.
Yeah, maybe just a 90-day probationary, just to make sure we're comfortable with them, and then the contract would be just like a regular annual contract, which I don't see happening, but you never know.
Do you want to make a motion that we ask Mr. Sorrell to go ahead and ratify the contract with Landrum?
Yeah, let's go ahead and I'll make that a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. I will say that I don't want to say that we have to do it in 30 days. I think we need to express to them that it needs to be done with thoroughness, but with some degree of speed. But I think it will unfold in that way. So, the other part of what you brought up, Mr. Perkins. Oh, let's vote on that. And it passes 4-0. The other thing that you brought up, which I think was very sage, was the idea of having an interim attorney for 30 days to get up to speed makes absolutely no sense to me. If Mr. Odom would be willing to continue to serve us until such time as we hire a new board attorney. I mean, did I hear that in what you were saying?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to have some sort of time limit on it, you know, maybe say, look, you know, we're gonna try and get this done in the next 2 months. Would you be willing to do that?
Okay.
You know, I think that's reasonable.
You want to make a motion?
We probably ought to ask Mr. Odom, or I don't know if we need to ask him, or if we just need to make the motion and then
Indentured.
send it to him, but I mean.
Mr. Odom?
I'll tell you, I'd really been hoping to make a clean break or a relatively clean break, and obviously already provided you with, you know, more than the notice that's required under the contract. And frankly, I have no desire to sit here as the parliamentarian when y'all are deciding about, you know, who you want to retain and all that stuff, and you probably want, you know, perhaps advice from me on that, and I don't know that that's, you know, really appropriate. You know, as a practical matter, I mean, I have an ethical obligation to you to ease with the transition. You know, I realize that ECUA is going to have questions, you know, come April 1, you know, and April 15th, and, you know, et cetera. And I can, you know, answer those questions. You know, I can, you know, discuss with Mr. Sorrell, you know, a short-term contract to kind of address those issues. You know, I think you're going to need somebody to serve as the parliamentarian at your next meeting, and that's probably easy enough to deal with. But I don't think we need to drag this out needlessly.
Mr. Perkins?
Well,
Sorry.
you know, given that answer, and I respect that completely, I understand that. I would move that we go ahead and get with Beggs and Lane on the interim, approve the Beggs and Lane as our interim attorney, asking, you know, of course, Mr. Odom to work with them and provide any files or anything that, you know, are necessary.
Is that a motion?
That was a motion.
Okay. Is there,
I will second that
okay.
motion.
And Ms. Campbell?
I'll second that motion, and I totally understand the decision by Bradley Odom not to want to sit here and be the parliamentarian for another month when he gave us ample notice that he was leaving. So I think anyone can sit in and be the, I apologize for that light. I don't have a noise, but I have a light. I think anyone could step in and be the parliamentarian. I'm not sure, you know, this firm is also going to have to check and see if they have any issues being here any longer than it takes us to find an attorney, because I think they have ties with Gulf Power and some other, and maybe the city of Gulf Breeze, and I don't know if those are going to be an issue or not for them, but if they're not going to be an issue for them, I agree that we should go ahead and let them step in as parliamentarian for until we do find a permanent attorney, and then move forward.
Dr. Walker?
Is, Madam Chairman, is Mr. Perkins' motion to be effective April 1? I don't think that was specified.
Mr. Perkins?
I need to know whether or not we're going to have an attorney up until then. You know, if we're going to have somebody working with us up until then it would be, yeah, April 1, just effective
I
April
think
1.
the contract-
April 1's a good clean.
Yeah, the contract is
a good
30.
clean cut. April 1.
Okay. Ms. Campbell?
I believe the contract is through March 31st, so
Yes.
April 1 would be the date.
You know, my only, okay, I agree about the parliamentarian. But the question is, I'm a little confused about the motion, whether it means we are going to have a clean break and that the Beggs and Lane firm will suddenly be our acting attorney, or if they will simply act as parliamentarian and we let invite Mr. Odom to continue to serve until such time as a permanent replacement, which would be my, you know, I just think there's a lot going on, a lot of institutional knowledge. If he can work on a month-to-month basis until such time, I can understand his reluctance to sit on the dais and be parliamentarian. But in terms of the work that we do, I can't imagine anyone being able to come in and in a month or 2 month period to do all of the legal things that we need done.
Well, I'm not sure if I understood if he was willing to do that. I mean, I was hoping is that, you know, and we could hire Beggs and Lane as the parliamentarian. What, could we get clarification on that?
Mr. Odom.
If you would like me to answer complaints, you know, answer questions that I get from staff, et cetera, that come in the next several weeks, yes, I can do that. You know, I'm somewhat averse to some open-ended sort of relationship. I will try to, you know, ease the transition as much as possible, and you know, perhaps, you know, we can try this, and then y'all can reassess it at another time.
So, Mr. Perkins, I heard a willingness. Is that what you heard?
Kinda.
He's an attorney. Dr. Walker?
Madam Chairman, what I hear is an unwillingness or a desire to not be, quote, our attorney beyond March 31st, but to be available or to be on call if specific needs arise, either by ECUA or by the interim attorney, who would be free, I presume, to call Mr. Odom for advice and counsel in a professional way. And but I think that I think the motion by Mr. Perkins, as I interpret it, was that we proceed with seeking to hire Beggs and Lane to provide us with an interim attorney or interim representation by the firm, and let Mr. Odom walk away, except that he would be available to help out on specific things if we give him a phone call. That's how I understand it.
Ms. Campbell?
I hear exactly what Dr. Walker hears, and I totally understand. Our attorney has given us notice, ample notice, and this happens with lawyers, you know. They can step in and take over a suit, and I have no doubt whatsoever that Bradley Odom is going to assist in any way that he can. If our interim attorney or the next attorney has questions on a lawsuit, I don't think that he would withhold that information. So, you know, I think he's ready to end the contract, and it's our job to figure out what to do. So I agree that we need to go ahead and hire an interim attorney in Beggs and Lane, who's a very, very good law firm here in town, to be the interim and allow them to put in for the the job if they want it as well. I don't know if they want it or if they just want the interim, but I know that we need somebody in this seat in April.
Mr. Sorrell?
Yes, ma'am, I just wanted to make it clear, I have talked to Brad. The staff is going to need his help on a lot of issues, and we will have to call him from time to time. He has told me that he will assist. He will provide us either on a case-by-case or an hourly basis, one of the two, whatever help we need. He has done so much for 25 years around here that we just have to have him. So I wanted the board to know that we will use him as needed. We will get a hold of Beggs and Lane if you approve that, and we will have them here as your parliamentarian and as the interim. But we're going to need Brad. Just no question about it. He just knows too much. He's a smart guy, and I mean, he knows a lot about our operation, and he's committed to do that. So I think that's. I just wanted to make that clear to the board.
Well, and I want to be sure, and pardon me for interrupting, Dr. Walker, but I don't want anything about this motion to suggest to Brad that we don't want him interfacing with staff or with you or, with anything, and we certainly would value that if he did that, or that's my understanding of the nature of the motion. And Dr. Walker, I apologize for interjecting.
No problem. No, as to concern about whether the interim attorney will be qualified to handle issues and so forth, I would think that the main function of an interim attorney for a month or two would be to try to get every legal action postponed, put off, delayed, and rather than moving forward, and that there wouldn't be any great emergencies arise during the time.
Ms. Campbell?
I agree, and I'd like to add that I don't think we would expect Brad to do anything for free,
Oh, I don't think that's been.
I mean,
Well, I mean, it's quite common for, new attorneys to coordinate with old attorneys and communicate and consult. I mean, that happens all the time. It's part of Mr. Odom's contract, and so I think we'll be okay. And I do appreciate all that he's done for the organization. He's saved us millions and millions.
During all, this has been awful. It's just been awful, I think, for all of us. I mean, Mr. Odom has been an amazing attorney for the ECUA. I know we've all met with him lots of times, and I met with him this fall and talked about this very issue. And I think we met for an hour. And he loves this organization. He loves the ECUA. He loves the people who work here. He has, for all of his tenure, wanted only what is best for the ECUA. And I don't think that anyone can doubt it. And I would be amazed if we could find somebody with his passion for this organization. This is a great loss for us. It's, we can discuss it as a contract and, be all in black and white, but I feel like we're losing a family member, and I'm very sad that it's come to this. He doesn't smile like Mrs. Sutherland to us. He sometimes scowls, but boy, does he give great advice. And he's a rare attorney, and he will certainly be missed. Anyway, so we have a motion on the floor. Please vote. And it passes 4-0. I assume that implicit in that vote was that we would contact Beggs and Lane and enact their contract. Okay, or maybe it was explicit. Okay, the next item is the Gray Robinson proposal, and you all have seen the proposal from Gray Robinson regarding our litigation for errors and omissions against Odom and Barlow. I'll open it up for discussion. Dr. Walker.
Madam Chairman, I would like to ask for a brief recess. before we get into this.
Okay. Let's take 5. Is 5 enough? Okay. We will convene at 10 after 4.
And my sister went to Harvard, but my family, my family wouldn't have $5 to get her in.
I know. Is that amazing? Wow.
Your microphone, ma'am.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda has to do with the Gray Robinson proposal, and I'll open this up to the board members. Anyone? Mr. Perkins?
Well, when we decided to pursue this, I was hoping that we might get somebody to take it on a contingency fee basis, because we spent quite a bit of money on this whole case. I personally think looking at everything, examining the case, looking at Mr. Odom's contract and some of the wording in there, and in the case, I think the chances of success are minimal, and I think that's probably why we didn't get anybody willing to take it on a contingency basis. So I'm not looking to spend another $200,000 or more, on this, and not have a reasonable chance of success. So I'm personally not interested in the proposal.
From the beginning, when we found out about this thing, I've said that insurance for errors and omissions exists for a reason. And if this were my retirement fund and someone who working for me had made an error or an omission that had resulted in a loss like this, I would do something. It's coming out of the pockets of the ratepayers, and I believe we have an obligation to the ratepayers to recover what we can. I spent about 45 minutes on the phone with the attorneys at Gray Robinson who would work this case if we pursued it. It looks like the maximum, and there's a lot of variability, would be about $165,000, which is a lot of money. They told me several things, but one is that it's not going to be quick, that it could be 2 years, it could be 3 years. But they believe that we would collect. They were very confident of the success. I asked them, I know that the carrier had denied the claim when we initially did it. They said that's pretty routine. I guess that's what all insurance companies do. I don't know. I don't know what our return will be, but I just think we have an obligation to try to recover the ratepayers' funds, whatever amount we can. Yeah, I'd prefer contingency. I guess obviously that was not an attractive option. I know Gray Robinson is a very highly respected law firm. Anyone else? Ms. Campbell?
I saw Dr. Walker's light on.
It's not, actually.
Okay. Well, yeah, I too feel like we owe it to our constituents to get their money back if at all possible. And I have errors and omissions insurance. I haven't used it yet, but knock on wood, but that's what it's there for if we make, mistakes. And I'm not surprised that the firm wouldn't take it on contingency. These are not the kind of cases they take on contingency. They take personal injury cases on contingency. So that really did not surprise me, and I never expected them to take it on contingency. I don't think $165,000 is too much, is a bad fee. And I do believe Gray Robinson has a very good reputation in Tallahassee. So, I don't feel like I could look at my constituents in the face and say I didn't try to get your money back without trying to get their money back. And it's their money, not my money. So, if it was my money, I may make a different decision, but it's not my money. I'm in a fiduciary responsible position to do with them what's right with their money. So I will vote for this.
We do not have a motion on the table. Would you like to make a motion, Ms. Campbell?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with Gray Robinson on the suit for errors and omission.
Is there a second? Very interesting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Mr. Perkins?
I hope y'all are right, you know, I hope y'all are right, but in looking at the case and what we could potentially recover, you know, which I think is gonna be fairly limited if we win, which I think is gonna be very difficult. I think what's gonna happen is that we're gonna lose another $165,000, and I take that fiduciary responsibility just as you know, just as serious as anybody here, and I think it's good money going after bad. You know, I hope I'm wrong. You know, I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't think that we're gonna be successful.
Ms. Campbell?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
And I think that's very cautious of you. I did speak at length with I think there were 4 attorneys from the firm with whom I spoke, and they felt very confident that we had a good case. And, you know.
They always do when they're getting $300 an hour if they get the business, you know, I mean.
Well, yeah. I just can't justify not trying to recover that money. That's been my position from the very beginning, that it's not fun to do this, but that insurance exists for a reason, and we should go after it. So we have a motion and a second. I think we've all said our piece. Please vote. And it passes 3-1. So if you will communicate, Mr. Sorrell, with the attorneys at Gray Robinson, you have all their information. Okay. One of the least fun meetings we've ever had. Do we have anything else on the unfinished business? I'm looking. I don't think so. Am I missing something? Okay, we come now to new business. No one has cited then. Any board communications? Okay, and we come now to our second open forum, and I have 2 speaker requests. The first one is Gloria Horning. You are recognized.
Thank you. The City Council has 2 forums. The Leo Boyd Forum at the beginning of their meeting and second after the meeting. Their meetings can run up till midnight. The County Commission has 2. It's the Gary Sunsing Public Forum at the beginning of the meeting and at the end of the meeting, which each person can speak at both the beginning and the end. As I look around, I don't see a group of people running up here to speak because guess what? They're at work, and they can't. So I find this as a clear silencing of one person, and one person in particular. We don't know what we're going to say the second time until we hear what is going on during this meeting. That's why the city and the county and the school board, by the way, have public forums at the beginning and at the end. And trust me, when I say I'm going to make this a huge issue, I will. Second of all, I've asked, not once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, are these meetings published in a newspaper of record? No, not that I can find. You posted all the meetings for the whole year at the beginning, but I haven't seen them since. So, if this goes through, trust me, you will have a battle on your hands. And I tell you, campaign contributions pay off. Bags and Lanes is one for sure.
The next speaker is Claristy Johnson. You are recognized.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to implore you, and I'm kind of coming a little bit behind Gloria, that when you think of limiting or not allowing a speaker to speak twice, in the spirit of the First Amendment, that I don't think that you should take that away. I think that if the meeting has been prolonged, then as it even states on the forum, that you can limit their time of speaking a second time, especially maybe if they're speaking on the same thing. But I think taking that right away, blanketing across the board, is not a good practice. And truly, all of our other meetings, and at least the ones I've gone to, City Council and the Board of County Commission, they do have two forums that you can speak on. So just wanted to bring that as you discuss that and maybe reverse that vote.
Thank you so much for your input. Okay, I have no other pink slips. Pardon me, oh, Mr. Perkins.
You know, after listening to them, I think they've convinced me. I mean, you know, not the threats. The threats never convinced me. I mean, you can threat me all you want to. But there is a good point. If you're sitting out in the audience and you've spoken at the beginning, and the meeting goes on for a couple hours, and you hear something that it sparks something, you say, hey, you know, I didn't get to talk on this, and I'd like to have some input on this decision. You should be able to do it. I think Ms. Johnson has a point, so I would make a motion to reconsider.
There's a motion to reconsider, and I don't believe we can discuss that. So just please vote on the motion to reconsider.
Does motion to reconsider need a second?
Oh, we can discuss it?
First of all, it needs a second.
Okay, is there a second? I think.
I will second it, and I would like to discuss it if that's
Okay,
fine.
it's been seconded. Okay, we can discuss the motion to reconsider. And that's what we're discussing. We're not discussing the issue. It's whether to reconsider. Okay?
So,
Okay. Mr. Perkins, you're the first light. Okay. Ms. Campbell?
yep, I just agree with what Mr. Perkins said. I think when we,
Well, right now, we're just whether or not to reconsider is, and then we'll discuss.
okay,
uh,
I'm good.
Okay. Dr. Walker?
Yes, we should reconsider.
Okay. All right. Motion to reconsider is what we're voting on. And please, but, Ms. Campbell, did you? Okay. Please vote. And it passes 4-0. Now, would you like to make a motion, Mr. Perkins?
Yeah, I move we stick with the current policy.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second.
All right. Discussion. Mr. Odom?
I'm going to interpret that because we've changed the policy. So I think that you meant to say
Let me
that.
reframe the motion. I move that we go with the policy that's on the existing sheet we have now that has 2 5-minute periods without the limitations other than what's on the sheet.
Okay.
So not the one we have adopted that is in effect now,
Okay.
the one that we had previously that we changed.
Okay, that's the motion. Dr. Walker?
I do think that it is reasonable to think that people in the audience, and there are precious few, who might hear something said during the meeting that they would wish to respond to. And I think that if I was someone who was good enough to come to these meetings on a regular schedule, that I should, if I was sitting out there, I'd want to have the right to speak at the end as well as the beginning. And I don't think we're overwhelmed by speakers. I think we should be democratic. We should be open, and we should welcome.
It's with a small d, right?
Well, I'm a good Republican too, Mr. Perkins.
Right.
I learned my lesson. But I've said enough.
I will just say, I do get tired of comments that are of an implied personal nature. you know, about campaign contributions or whatever. I think there's no place for that. If someone wants to persuade me about something, I think it's nice to be polite and tactful and state your case and persuade me the way I would persuade others. I don't think there's any place in this forum that should allow personal comments, derogatory comments that do not further the business of this organization. You know, I'm a big girl and I've got thick skin. I've been in politics a long time. But it's gotten meaner and coarser and I don't like it. So I certainly hope to use my prerogative as chair to gavel down when someone is out of line and is not focused on the issues. Ms. Campbell.
Well, I would appreciate you gaveling down if anybody is bordering on civility or lack of civility. I think it's a huge problem right now throughout the United States, and especially right here in Escambia County, Florida. Civility is out the window, and I would like to see a little bit of order brought back, but I was raised right, so, you know, some weren't.
Dr. Walker.
Well, I'm going to bore you with history again, but
It's all right, we enjoy it.
we have no critic today who comes anywhere close to being as uncivil as ones that we had back in the 90s. Mr. Perkins, you were around during the latter half of the 90s. There were, it was a different kind of situation. It was ugly sometimes, really ugly. And ECUA had much less public standing then than it did today. So to me, what I see and hear today is rather calm and nothing to get excited about. I do think that some people can be impolite with some of what they say, and I think it would be better that they not do that, just as it would be better that board members and staff be polite in what they say. So I think with responsibility, that the freedom to speak comes a responsibility to speak civilly. As far as the Beggs and Lane comment, I don't know Mr. Beggs. He may be dead for all I know. I don't know Mr. Lane. He also may be dead for all I know. And I don't know anyone in the firm. And I haven't received a campaign contribution from an attorney. Oh, maybe I think in 2000 was the last time. So that criticism doesn't apply to me. And I'm sure it doesn't apply to most of my colleagues. But let's all try to be civil, on both sides. And I would like to say that the more freedom we give people to speak at our meetings, I think, in general, the more civil they will be. I'll put my faith in that and hope that it works out that way. I'll put my faith in that as Mr. Perkins put his hope in pursuing the lawsuit. Sometimes you act on faith.
Ms. Campbell.
I was raised with red hair, freckled, chubby, and poor. I got the thickest skin of anybody alive, trust me, in West Pensacola elementary schools. So what some of those little boys said to me on the playground back then is far worse than anybody has ever said to me in public office. I don't know if I got a campaign donation from anybody at Beggs and Lane, and
I did.
If I did, I will stand on my integrity for as long as I live. I do work in the law firm. I work with law firms, so it may be very well have happened back in 2012. I don't remember it happening, but I did ask if that would be a problem that I did work for Beggs and Lane back in the day. I didn't work for them one-on-one, but I work for underwriters, and underwriters work for every attorney. So I have done work for every single law firm in Pensacola, Florida. If that's a problem, I even went to my firm, Emmanuel, Shepherd and Condon, when we started the search, and said, if you want to put your name in that hat, I will resign tomorrow. Not from the board here. I will resign from my job at Emmanuel, Shepherd and Condon if you want to go after this job. So, you know, you can't pay me enough to make a bad decision.
Mr. Perkins?
In the immortal words of Rodney King, can't we all just get along?
Apparently not.
I was new on the board quite some time back, and I was very abrasive and would try to impose my will on everything and everybody and force things to happen. And I had nobody affiliated with the organization, but I had somebody that was watching my effectiveness in government and watching my effectiveness as a board member. Now, I should say ineffectiveness rather than effectiveness. Pull me aside, and he says, "You're like that story about the wind and the sun." I'm like, huh? He's like, the wind and the sun are talking one day, and the wind says, "See that old man down there with that jacket? Watch me, I'm going to blow that jacket off him." And the wind blew and blew and blew and tried to force the jacket off the old man. And the harder he blew, the harder the old man held on to his jacket and would not let loose of it. Finally, the wind got wore out and said, "Man, tough old man, you know, I'm done." And the sun was just nice and bright and lovely and compassionate and understanding and factual, and the old man just took the jacket off. And that's what I have found in my own experience on the board, is that I get way more bees with honey than I do with a stick. And so I can do one thing. I can feed my ego and rant and rave and be ineffective, or I can be polite, considerate, factual, intelligent, and practical, and be effective. And that's what I've been trying. I'm a lot lower key than I used to be, but I'm also a lot more effective. That's all I have.
Thank you. I think everyone on this board is pretty nice to I think we treat everyone with respect, and I think we will continue to do so. I do have one other concern, and I will want to share it. I remember when I was first on this board, there was somebody on Blab TV selling something, and they selling some filtration system, and they said that the most dangerous 5 minutes of your day was when you took a shower, and about how dangerous the ECUA water was. And we actually went to the Attorney General because, you know, we have free speech, but we don't get to shout fire in a public theater. I would ask people to be cautious about scaring people in the public about the water they drink. If there are concerns, we need to address those concerns. But if people buy bottled water, which is less regulated than our tap water because of fear, bottled water that they can't afford, we have not done a service. So I think if someone wants to come to us with facts and documents and so forth, or to work it through staff as well, because we care about the quality of the water that we serve. Every person here, every person at ECUA. And I think that's an important component of this open forum. I will accede to the will of the people. I think we all want to hear the voices of people in this community. But it needs to be in a certain manner, and I think we've all said that pretty carefully today. Anyway, we may now vote on the motion. And it passes 4-0. And Ms. Johnson, I do want to tell you, I think it's because you came up here and said what you did in the manner that you did that vote took place. So thank you. Okay. Do we have anything else? I think not. We are adjourned.